Greetings! Welcome to episode 5 of the search for the perfect 4-3-3 fifth variation tactics. Based on the stats from each episode, we keep tinkering, we keep testing things, and of course, based off of last episode, we made some changes. Goalkeepers and center backs remain untouched as usual. The fullbacks are also untouched. We have found that balance is perfect for them in this formations. Now, in terms of the CDM, he is still on man mark, he is still on cover center, and he is still on stay back while attacking. We haven't really found reason to change this. Like last episode, the right center mid is still on get forward and on free roam, but we did end up adding getting into the box for crosses. Very big change here because, you won't know until you try. So we did tell our left center mid to go drop between defenders, but also getting into the box for crosses. More on this soon. Like last episode, the center forward is on false 9, but we did also add drift wide, and of course I'll explain this in a minute. And finally, like last episode, the wingers are on free roam, but we decided to add get in behind on top of that. I'm gonna be honest here, boys, this was an absolute disaster, and this is the first episode where I played more than 7 matches. The reason for this is because these instructions only lasted me 3 games. It's crazy how much of a difference I felt, and therefore this is the first episode where we go through 2 sets of instructions, because after those 7 I went back and played the usual 7. But before we get into that, the stats will follow, but first let me talk about the changes I made and the thought process behind it. First things first, the left center mid. I used drop between defenders, and I knew what to expect. I've tried it before in the past, but the description of the instructions say that the players keep a neutral shape with drop between defenders. So I was curious how this would affect a left center mid in a formation with a CDM that's already being told to stay back. And I wanted to try that on the left center mid in De Jong with also medium high work rates and see what happened. And to balance it, I also added, as you guys saw, the getting into the box instruction to push him forward a little bit, but also see if he would maintain shape and stay there. And in a way, I kind of did enjoy it. It felt like the left winger's free roam had more of an impact because of this, because on his flank, De Jong was emptying his space, and therefore it gave more pockets of space for the left winger to insert himself. But overall, it just wasn't worth it. I do wish it would have worked, but it didn't. In terms of drift wide on the false 9, that was also another disaster. It made sense in my head. Get the center forward to go to the wing, and we will create a lot of triangles, drag players out, and get the best out of the 4-3-3. But yeah, that did not work out. Now, that's not to say that stay central is ideal. I think that overall, balanced is just the best. In terms of the wingers, as usual, free roam was fine. It was great. But telling them to getting in behind on top of that backfired, because they were always running away, and I felt like I had no outlet. So after this catastrophic failure, I went back to the drawing board. And back to the drawing board I did. Now, this is what I did before playing my 7 games from scratch with a new set of instructions. I changed my left center mid to stay back while attacking. We drop between defenders completely. It was just too much. So I wanted to see if this would result in a better balance, because I still wanted to test something out on my left center mid. I removed drift wide on the center forward. We already established that was completely useless, and having more people on the wing just didn't do anything for me. I thought it would, but it didn't. And finally, I changed the getting in behind instruction on the wingers to come short, just to see how the other extreme was. I figured we're here, let's just see how it is. If it's good, great. If it's not, well, then we know balanced is the way to go. And this time things did go a lot better than the first time around, so that's good, but probably nowhere near as good as last episode, which was so far the peak in the series. So first things first, we played the usual 7, we won 6 and lost 1. So again, off the get-go, not as good as the 7-0 run we had last episode, but not to worry yet, because you guys know that I care mostly about chance creation. Now, in terms of goals scored, unfortunately, we had 23 goals scored, a big decrease there. That's 3.29 per game and 3.8 per 90 minutes. Shout out to you guys in the comment section, pulling this series together. The good news here is that we have now reached our final form in terms of delivering stats. We had no per minute or per 90 minutes. Then we had per minute, and then you guys suggested let's just do it for per 90 minutes. I couldn't think of it myself because no big brain moves from Stallion in 2020. But it's 2021 now, and it's okay. We move. Defensively, as you can see from the stats, just one extra goal conceded, which, you know, all in all is fine. One more, one less, two more, two less, it's whatever. We did tally up more minutes played, but despite that, ever so slightly, we conceded just more, both per game and per 90 minutes this episode. Not a tragedy, though. Nice to see that we remain semi-consistent, at least defensively, and it makes sense considering that the changes defensively were close to none. However, what this does tell us is that if the changes are minimal, perhaps it's just not worth telling the left center mid to stay back at all, because, you know, we're not even conceding less, so might as well just leave him unbalanced. Now, as you will know by now, shots taken is my most important stat. Unfortunately, the theme remains the same over here, and we did decrease across the board. The shots per 90 minutes is perhaps the most alarming, where we went from a beautiful 11 shots per 90 minutes last episode, which obviously I didn't tally because we weren't doing per 90 minutes yet, but nonetheless it was 11.25 more or less, to a measly 7.6 this episode. But I did try going back to the previous setup in my own time, not in this video, and I found similar stats to the episode prior, so that's good news. That we still managed to replicate around 11 going back to the earlier setup. It's crazy to see how instructions actually matter. But finally, for those conceded, shots conceded, that is, although we did play more minutes this episode due to less rage quits, it wasn't enough to excuse the extra 4 shots conceded, as shown by the shots conceded per 90 minutes actually increased by more than I would have liked, but still nothing tragic. Obviously, I feel like with better offensive displays, the defense receives way less pressure to perform and things naturally lower defensively. So obviously today having a much worse offensive performance didn't help. In terms of the contributions, by this point in the episode, we all know what's coming more or less, because if everything so far went down, so will these. For one, the center forward had 17 contributions, which is a whopping 8 less, totaling 1.43 per 90 minutes in the peak of last episode, which is unfortunate because we removed the drift wide that we tried in the first 3 games. Ironically, the ugly duckling, if you will, of the formation, which so far has been the left winger in terms of not contributing as much, is one of the few guys who did slightly better with 1 more contribution. Obviously nothing crazy. The fact that his long lost brother in the right wing spot did as worse as he did tells me that overall, from an instructions standpoint, we are better off without both getting in behind and come short. But you know, we want balance. But hey, that is something that is good to know. Trial and error is also about making sure that something you might think could be okay is actually not. With the new instruction, it comes to no surprise that the left center mid had a dip. We expected it, but everyone else did worse too, and definitely it didn't yield what we wanted defensively, so back to default he will go in general. The right center mid also did considerably worse. Obviously part of it is due to the whole balance of the team being off, but we will be removing the get into the box instruction on him. Perhaps that is just too much, and free roam and get forward was already doing great as it was, so we shall return to that. As for the rest, I feel like their performances are pretty much irrelevant. So despite the negative stats, it is now, you know, not worth looking at them anymore. It's not really a loss, but rather a step in confirming that our previous path was the best possible one. So what happens now? Well, what happens now is that now we have our instructions set. I think these are good. The ones that we had last episode are the ones that we're going to go forward with. The next episode, we will focus on testing out mentalities. We will play a ton of games for that, 7 games per mentality, so I believe that's 28 total because there are 4 different offensive mentalities between balance, long ball, fast build-up, and possession. The first 7 will be with balanced, and we will use those 7 as the baseline to compare what happens to the stats when using other mentalities. Now, I'm pretty excited to see the difference for this, if there will be any. I'm sure there will be, and the overall feel. After that, we will entering the stage of tinkering with the width, depth, and finally defensive mentalities. So we're almost at the end here. Instructions are done. Now it's just about the next episode for offensive mentalities, and as I said, and then maybe 1 or 2 more max. We'll see. I hope you guys enjoyed. You're enjoying the series. Let me know your thoughts down below, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.